Welcome back, guys! We are in part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is like part 6 now of the third season of Early Muslim Expansion. I'm glad you're here with me. We've seen crazy things happening. Fitnas, we've seen expansionism, we've seen the Eastern Roman Empire fall a little bit and then grow back a little bit and then fall a little bit more. We've seen just the complete annihilation of different peoples within the actual caliphate. We've seen it change hands 3 or 4 times now. Rashidun, Umayyad, Zubayd, Umayyad. It's crazy. And now we're in North Africa, ready to start this next episode. Glad you're here with me. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe button. Lego.
By embarking on a scorched earth campaign in the territory she had driven Hassan from, likely viewing the caliphate's renewed invasion as simply ambitious raiding, she may have hoped to dissuade them from returning by stripping the border regions of plunder, or to demoralize them further after their defeat with a display of brutality. Unfortunately, this move would quickly backfire, for many under Dia's banner, especially those who lived in the affected lands or used them for grazing, were angered by the wasteful and self-destructive action, and without the immediate unifying threat of the caliphate, Dia's Berber kingdom began to fragment. As these events are filtered through the interpretations of non-Berber outsiders, it is even possible the fragmentation had begun earlier, and what Arab observers saw as a scorched earth campaign was in reality an attempt to stamp out brewing tribal rebellion.
That makes a lot more sense, honestly.
Thus, despite her massive victory in battle, Dia would never reach Kairouan as her predecessor Caecilius had, with her dominance of the Maghreb reduced to little more than her homeland in the Auris mountain highlands by the time Hassan returned with reinforcements in late 702. Dia mustered what loyal forces remained to her, picking an advantageous battleground to await Hassan's arrival, Tabaka, on the coast north of the modern Tunisian city of Jendouba, where the Auris Mountains and Mediterranean Sea formed a natural choke point. The choice of the battlefield was sound. The terrain would constrain and hamper the numerically superior Muslim army.
Bunch of horses.
While the presence of the Byzantine fleet at Sicily prevented Hassan from simply bypassing the choke point by sea. Nevertheless, when the battle was joined early in 703, Dia would see first her army and then her kingdom shatter, with no more Byzantine gold to sway tribes to her banner, and with her actions having alienated most of the lowlanders. Many of those who had fought with her at Meskiana deserted her or chose to join Hassan, now that the caliphate was the only remaining power bloc in the region.
Dang.
Though she narrowly escaped the disastrous defeat, she was pursued into the Auris Mountains and slain soon after.
I will say, the one thing with the caliphate, they do not play around. Like, there is no POWs. There are no prisoner of war. They are quick and they do not have regrets.
Ending the years of back and forth fighting to conquer the Maghreb. To aid in the rebuilding of the devastated region after Carthage's razing and Dia's scorched earth campaign, thousands of Coptic Christians were resettled from Egypt, taking up residence in newly founded Tunis to work in Hassan's new shipyards for the growing caliphate. In a cruel twist of irony though, Hassan would not get to enjoy the spoils of his great victory any longer than Dia had, as a dispute over jurisdiction with Abdulaziz ibn Marwan, governor of Egypt and brother to the caliph, ended with Hassan losing his hard-earned governorship and returning to Syria in disgrace and poverty scarcely a year later, while Abdulaziz expanded his own power on the back of Hassan's success by installing his loyal servant Musa ibn Nusayr in his place. It was Musa, not Hassan, who would push west to the Atlantic coast in the following few years, converting and assimilating most of the Berber tribes in his path, and waging war against those that refused, finally standing poised for the next great conquest of the ever-growing caliphate, Visigothic Spain.
Visigothic Spain, that's a whole nother world right there.
In the east, meanwhile, the unrest sparked by Abd al-Rahman's rebellion would continue for years, with his former companions splitting up and raising later uprisings in Sistan and Khorasan, even after the Zumbils caved to the caliphate's demands and executed him. Iraq and Persia would remain centers of anti-Umayyad discontent, and Afghanistan unconquered for the rest of the Umayyad era. with the same racial and sectarian tensions that had fueled first al-Muqta's and later Abd al-Rahman's rebellions, eventually leading to their downfall.
Wow.
As we imagine Musa ibn Nusayr stood on the shores of northwestern Africa, to him, any business he had in any city of the Caliphate or at home was a world away, out of his control. That might have been a...
This sounds like an ad. It's an ad. It's an ad. It's an ad. It's an ad. Alright, we're back.
Immediately following the Berber Queen Dia's defeat would be marked by both victory and some turmoil, particularly in Khorasan and Transoxiana, where caliphal authority had still not been fully restored since the Second Fitna.
Just look at all these places, guys. Like, I don't know. This is just showing the ignorance of a collective humanity here. Like, look at all these different regions. Zabul, Hakinan, Hakka, Jamba, Kashmir, Kabul, Bacharistan, etc., etc., etc. These people, there's been thousands and millions of people live in these areas, and most people never know that that's ever happened or never existed. They just don't know, including me. I'm glad we're watching this to learn more.
Between 692 and 705, the largely independent governor, Musa ibn Abdallah, had expanded his power base, first by conquering local Hephthalite and Sogdian city-states, even clashing with forces of the Tibetan Empire over influence in the region, then later forging local alliances in order to expand at the expense of other Arab governors in the region, despite his nominal loyalty to the Caliph. Musa was eventually brought to heel and slain in a campaign ordered by al-Hajjaj and led by al-Mufaddal and Mudrik, both sons of Khorasan's previous governor al-Muhallab ibn Abi Sufra, with the aid of the Arab-friendly monarch Tarkun, ruler of Samarkand, and the most powerful of the Sogdian rulers. However, the episode highlighted the increasing difficulty of maintaining control over such distant frontiers, and much of the following decades would see the Umayyads attempting to centralize their vast realm with varying degrees of success.
It's just so hard. You just look at any empire ever. When you don't have, like, control at an administrative level, unilaterally, but also in segmentation with, like, governors and whatnot, everyone's aligned. If that's not true, you're gonna have continuous revolts.
A different sort of turmoil simmered in the capital during this same period. With Caliph Abd al-Malik now aged and sickly, thorny questions surrounding his succession began to arise. Though Abd al-Malik favoured his sons, al-Walid and Suleiman, as successors, his brother Abdulaziz, governor of Egypt, was the preferred candidate for many, despite his advanced age, particularly as their father, Caliph Marwan, now dead 20 years, had previously declared that Abdulaziz should succeed his brother. Abd al-Malik's request for his brother to renounce his claim and withdraw from succession drove a wedge between the two, with Abd al-Malik seemingly fearing another civil war, as evidenced by his attempts to compel tribute from Abdulaziz and chip away at his traditionally very autonomous power base. These fears were quelled when Abdulaziz died in late 704.
That's convenient.
Though the continuing uncertainty surrounding succession spurred Abd al-Malik to make an unprecedented move, summoning his vassals to take their oath of allegiance to his son al-Walid while he still lived. Though power in the Caliphate had now been dynastic for 24 years, swearing fealty to a designated heir before his succession marked a further departure from the elective tradition of the Rashidun and was disliked by many, with the respected judge and scholar Sayyid ibn Musayyib even being jailed and beaten for his refusal to swear the oath.
Dang, I don't play.
Despite this dissatisfaction, al-Walid's reign would become one of the most successful of any Umayyad Caliph, and he took the throne after his father's death in October 705 without serious opposition. New conquests would swiftly follow on three main fronts. In the east, Governor
3 fronts? We haven't seen that since the Rashiduns.
al-Hajjaj, a trusted companion and advisor to the new caliph, would grow ever more influential, ruling Iraq and Persia like a kingdom of his own, and appointing his own governors to oversee further expansion. The most significant of these frontier governors were Qutayba ibn Muslim, who replaced al-Mufaddal as governor of Khorasan and continued the conquest of Transoxiana, and Muhammad ibn Qasim, governor of Fars.
We gotta back that up because that's a geographic term I've never heard.
And continued the conquest of
Transoxiana. Interesting. Did not know that was what that region was called.
And Muhammad ibn Qasim, governor of Fars, who would oversee the greatest Arab victories in India to date. In the west, Musa ibn Nusayr ruled the frontier as governor of Afriqiya, with Visigothic Spain the next target of the Caliphate's unstoppable march.
Visigothic Spain was a target? Now, I get it because we know history, like, sort of, right? So, like, we understand that the Iberian Peninsula becomes Muslim. We know that. We know that. But just the foresight for these people to know their ultimate goal is not the North African piece right here, but eventually the Visigothic kingdom. That's just, like I said, that's a whole nother world. That's like if they were to invade, I mean, it's very different, but that's like if they were trying to invade England, which they would fail ultimately in any other year that's not like 1100 plus. But given their momentum and how the world is at this point, who would oppose them? I'm sure we'll find out.
The first conquests of al-Walid's reign would be undertaken by Qutayba, who successfully took advantage of the feuding and conflict between the Sogdian principalities of the region to bring them into the Caliphate's sway. Tish al-Awar, ruler of Cheganian, was facing aggression from the neighbouring principalities of Shuman and Akron to the north, at the base of the Hisan Mountains. To preserve his throne, he offered his tribute and fealty when Qutayba's army arrived in late 705, lending his strength to that of the Arabs in their swift campaign against his rival princes and against Balkh, the power centre of the Turkaristan region. The disunity of the many princes of Transoxiana made it relatively easy for Qutayba to compel tribute from the region and bring it under the suzerainty of the Caliphate.
Tish found an opportunity and he took it.
Though his power in the region remained a delicate balancing act, as demonstrated by difficult campaigns, such as his months-long conquest of Peykand, a mercantile city whose great wealth allowed it to attract soldiers and mercenaries from across Sogd to resist Qutayba for some time before its fall and brutal sacking. Indeed, he would be forced to wage several costly campaigns over the next few years, as individual rulers or small coalitions came into conflict with the new lords of the Oxus, with further fighting in Bukhara following Peykand's sacking. 706 also marked the beginning of a new set of hostilities against the Byzantines, undertaken by al-Walid's son Abbas ibn al-Walid and half-brother Maslama ibn Abd al-Malik. For the most part, resistance to these raids was on a local basis, the same Syrian Mahdites that had been resettled 2 decades ago by Justinian II, fighting without significant aid from Constantinople. One exception, and the largest clash during this period of hostility.
Look at this siege that's about to take place. My God, this is like a constriction from like a python here.
Was the siege of Tyana near today's Kamahisar in either 706 or 708. Tyana was well fortified and a crucial strongpoint in the Cappadocian frontier, and Maslama's siege would not be an easy one nor a challenge the Byzantines could ignore. The past years of civil strife had not been kind to the Byzantine army though. Justinian II, whose overthrow at the hands of Leontios had set off the crisis, had since returned to power with the aid of the Bulgars and had embarked on a purge of any he saw as complicit in his downfall, or as threats to his recently regained throne.
Look how close they are actually at the Anatolia Peninsula. You can see Abbas right there, bottom right. They're not that far away from Constantinople.
This purge had ended the lives or careers of many capable officers, with many hanged from Constantinople's walls, even as the war-weary empire needed their talents most. This purge, and Justinian's fear of a single military leader winning glory and prestige enough to overthrow him, meant that the relief army sent to Tiana was hampered by ineffectual and divided leadership. The two officers in command, Theodori Carterucus and Theophylact Celebus, are recorded as jockeying with each other for authority and disagreeing on tactical matters, undermining the army's morale and cohesion. Furthermore, the poor state of the army showed in the presence of a sizable but untrained peasant militia making up a portion of the Byzantine ranks, a far cry from the well-organized system of themes normally entrusted with defense on the frontiers. In the end, the relief army's arrival would mean more harm than help for the defenders of Tiana. Not only did its disorganized attack on the besieging Arabs fail, with the Byzantines being routed with great loss of life, but the supplies seized from the relief force
It's only going to benefit the Muslims.
Allowed the hungry besiegers to wait out the defenders until Tiana finally surrendered. Having suffered from significant supply problems through the winter, the Arabs would likely have otherwise abandoned the siege and withdrawn. But after a 9-month siege, Tiana finally surrendered, by most accounts in the spring of 709. Victorious, Maslama had the fortress razed, and the bulk of the Mahdites resettled into Syria once more, leaving the Cappadocia region depopulated and defenseless.
Dang.
Following these victories, the Caliphate would enjoy 4 relatively peaceful years, with Al-Walid appointing new governors and ensuring his authority as the new Caliph was recognized across his vast realm. However, the years 711 and 712 would see 2 major campaigns erupt, almost 7,000 kilometers away from each other, on opposite sides of the Caliphate. While on the
They're invading Iberia. Oh shoot.
Western Front, Musa ibn Nusayr and Tariq ibn Ziyad brought the might of the Caliphate to Visigothic Hispania, the topic of our next video. A recent string of failures in the east had galvanized Al-Walid and Al-Hajjaj to redouble their efforts in India. Sindh had long been a base for pirates who preyed on vessels in the Indian Ocean. And of further concern was the sanctuary many Sassanid loyalists and various defeated rebels had received upon fleeing Umayyad territory for India.
Really?
The apparent inciting incident for the campaign occurred when pirates seized 8 ships travelling from the kingdom of Anuradhapura in modern Sri Lanka, whose hulls contained jewels, pearls, slaves, and other gifts from King Manavama to the Caliph, as well as Muslim women on pilgrimage who were taken captive. Details on the first punitive expedition are scarce, but following the seizure of the ships and King Dahir of Sindh's refusal or inability to have them recovered from the pirates, Hajjaj petitioned a reluctant Al-Walid for support in an invasion, which was finally granted. Led by a general named Buzail, 3,000 men sailed to the port city of Nerun near Pakistan's northern city of Hyderabad, before marching with a vengeance on the prominent pirate haven of Debal. The garrison and local forces would crumble rapidly before the small Arab army, but this initial victory would last only until the arrival of Prince Jasir of Sindh with 4,000 men, mounted on camels and accompanied by war elephants.
Not the war elephants, we remember those.
Though the Arabs fought valiantly, the elephants drove many of the Arab cavalry's horses to panic, including Buzail's own steed, leading to the general's death and the defeat of his already outnumbered army.
Oh, this is only going to do 2 things. They're gonna pump the brakes, or they're gonna go full gas. What will it be? What will it be? I'm gonna guess gas.
And Sindh's victory would be very short-lived, however. Even before the launching of the second invasion, cracks were beginning to show in the kingdom. Fearing another invasion, the governor of Nerun began paying tribute to Al-Hajjaj, a sign of the breakdown in central authority in Sindh that had allowed the kingdom to become such a haven for pirates, and which would later see the Caliphate gather significant support from within its borders. In addition, various tribes and communities existed effectively independently within Sindh borders, most notably the nomadic Jat people and the Meds of Balochistan, who lived along the coasts as fishermen and pirates. During the reign of Rai Chach, who established the Chacha dynasty in Sindh around the same time Islam was first emerging in Arabia, humiliating and discriminatory decrees had been leveled against such tribal groups, the Jat in particular. These included bans on their wearing of silk and
so they are already mad.
And carrying of swords, with children of prominent Jat leaders held hostage to enforce these rules. By the time of Al-Walid and Tahir, these grudges still ran deep, but the Crown of Sindh seemingly no longer had the power or authority to control its coasts or its populace, leaving large minority populations and disloyal vassals within the nation ready to take up arms against the state at the first showing of weakness. This opportunity would come swiftly, when in late 711 a second army was raised with Al-Walid's direct support, Al-Hajjaj using the soldiers from Buzayl's army still held prisoner in Sindh as a further grievance to goad the Caliph into war. Under the leadership of Muhammad ibn Qasim, the still teenage governor of Fars and Al-Hajjaj's brother-in-law, and counting 6,000 horsemen from the Caliphate's core Syrian army, an equal number of camel-mounted irregular
they're about to go crazy.
warriors joining at Shiraz, and a further 3,000 at Makran,
15?
led by the province's elderly and sickly governor, Muhammad ibn Harun, this army would greatly outnumber Buzayl's. And though his family ties and personal loyalty to Al-Hajjaj seem to have contributed more to the young governor's selection as leader than his military experience, particularly with Al-Hajjaj having suffered near defeat at the hands of one rebel general already, he would rapidly prove his skill as a commander in the years to follow. From Makran, the army marched into Sindh with a vengeance, first conquering the Balochi city of Armanbale, today's Bela, Pakistan. Despite his youth and his larger army, Ibn Qasim proceeded with greater caution than Buzayl had, wary of the Sindh prince's army that had foiled the first expedition, and constructing a series of fortified camps as he advanced to guard against ambush.
That's very smart. On his flanks, he's got coverage now.
Reaching Debal on October 28, 711, ships arrived to unload fast siege engines and catapults, along with frequent correspondence from Al-Hajjaj, and the ever-cautious commander dug trenches around the besieged city to guard against any relief army or sortie before beginning a bombardment. While the 13th century Chachnamaz account of the siege to follow is rather fanciful, featuring a magical battle standard that rendered the city unconquerable until its flagpole atop the temple was shattered by a catapult stone, among other obvious embellishments, the basic overview of the brief siege is simple enough.
I wonder where one thing I don't know, which would be interesting, I wonder where they got these stones and if they were put on sleds and dragged by horses, how they were pulleyed onto these catapults, because they're just throwing rocks, really, so I wonder.
After 7 days of bombardment from mangonels and the enormous catapult known as the Little Bride the Caliph had provided, the defenders of the city attempted to sally forth against the besieging army, only to be driven back easily. The following day, Ibn Qasim's army assaulted the battered walls from every direction, soon scaling the walls and storming the city.
That was just too easy.
Brutal sack followed, with the city nearly razed, many killed as they sought refuge in the temple, and far more carried off as captives. Leaving the recently freed prisoners from Buzayl's army in charge of Debal, along with their former jailer Kubla, who was spared thanks to his kind treatment of the Muslim prisoners and swift conversion to Islam upon their victory, the great army swiftly departed their conquest to push on towards Nerun.
I wonder how many people convert to Islam that they fight, not because they really wanted to convert to Islam, but because they know that they'll be spared. I wonder.
Where Jaysiya was still encamped. Outnumbered by the approaching army and receiving word of the fall of Debal, the prince opted to withdraw to his father's side, commanding Nerun's governor to resist the approaching Arabs, unaware of the tributary agreement he had already reached. When Ibn Qasim arrived in Nerun soon after Jaysiya's departure, he found no resistance, instead being allowed to rest and resupply, while Jat and Med tribespeople, hostile to the Chach monarchs and hearing word of Qasim's victory, flocked to his banner.
It's not going to be long before this entire area falls.
From here, he first went northwest along the west bank of the Indus, conquering Sewan with little more difficulty than Debal, despite the stubborn defense of its leader Bechera, cousin to King Dahir. After another week-long siege, its citizenry, frightened by tales of Debal's raising, favoured surrender, eventually driving Bechara out in order to do so. A few days later, at Badia, Bechara attempted another stand after fleeing Sewan's fall, joining that city's headman, Karakotak, to launch a night attack against the encamped Arab army. 1,000 of his best warriors split into 4 groups for the raid.
This is like some early Rashidun type tactics right here.
Under cover of darkness, backed up by Jats loyal to Sindh. Confused orders would see the nighttime attack come to naught, however, with the 4 groups failing to properly coordinate in the darkness, some becoming lost and failing to reach the Arab army, while the rest were discovered and driven away by the alert sentries of the well-fortified camp.
Yeah, y'all had to realize that no one was just gonna be they weren't all gonna be asleep, right?
In the aftermath of this defeat, Karakotak submitted to Ibn Qasim as so many of Dihir's vassals had already, while Bechara and his loyalists were slain, bringing almost the whole of Sindh west of the Indus under the sway of the Caliphate. The true test would be the crossing of the Indus, however, and here Qasim's army, camped at Kahal, began to face difficulties. Dihir and Jasir stood ready on the opposite bank, the 2 armies at times within bowshot of each other, guarding against a crossing. Despite nominally commanding the loyalty of the nearby conquered cities, Qasim's position was still tenuous, based on a fear that the loyalty might fade if the conquerors showed too much weakness. Indeed, as the 50-day standoff across the Indus drew on, the Arabs found great difficulty in keeping themselves supplied, with the army beginning to suffer from hunger and disease, and being forced to eat many of their horses.
That's so bad, man.
While Sewan rose in revolt behind them and expelled its recently installed Arab garrison. Though this revolt was quickly suppressed, and 2,000 fresh horses laden with supplies,
fresh horse meat on the way,
were soon sent by al-Hajjaj, the long period of inactivity was clearly weakening the Arab position. Thus, on Hajjaj's orders, the army departed towards Thatta, most likely in May of 712. A successful crossing was made at Jim, today the site of Kinjar Lake, but at the time a relatively safe ford, where a small island stood in the middle of the Indus. Provided boats by the local leader, Moka Basala, Ibn Qasim had them filled with ballast and connected by planks to form a bridge, crossing before the unprepared Dahir could bring his forces to bar their way, and routing the paltry force under Moka's loyalist brother, Rasil.
It's all over now. Unless Dahir and Jasir have like a formidable elephant wall, I don't know.
From here, Qasim marched swiftly north towards the Sindhi capital of Aror, defeating several Sindhi armies along the way. At a lake just south of today's Nawab Shah, the first major engagement was fought, with Jasir taking a strong force of soldiers and elephants to oppose the invaders.
There's the elephant wall.
Though they fought bravely, and the elephants caused great chaos among the mounted Arabs, they were swiftly enveloped and hemmed in by their more mobile foes, with the majority of the army being cut down, while Jasir broke through the foes surrounding him atop an elephant to escape to his father's side.
Yeah, it's getting serious.
This defeat further shook the confidence of Dihir's vassals, with Rasil now defecting to join his brother in Ibn Qasim's service, and securing boats to cross the lake as a sign of his new loyalty.
Jeez.
Over the following 3 days, Dihir, facing loyalty problems and apparently allowing the readings of his astrologers to inform much of his strategy, threw several detachments against Ibn Qasim to no avail, allowing the Arabs to overcome these small forces piecemeal and reduce the Sindhi numbers advantage. On June 16, 712, following the advice of Muhammad ibn Haris, leader of the Muslim Alafi tribe, which had fled Makran after a blood feud brought them into conflict with al-Hajjaj, he finally brought his full army to bear against Ibn Qasim's army, which had crossed the lake, led by his lieutenant Uwayyad ibn Qais. Arranging his horsemen on the left, archers on his right, with foot soldiers supported by war elephants in the center, the Sindhi army numbered approximately 20,000 men to Ibn Qasim's 15,000.
So they have the advantage, and they have elephants.
Though he initially attempted to rout them with an elephant charge, The Arabs and their mounts now had experience fighting the great beasts, and divided into small groups to confuse and frighten the war elephants sent against them. Meanwhile, a cavalry charge by the Muslim second-in-command, Muriz ibn Sabat, into the enemy centre saw significant success, despite Muriz's own death in battle, causing great damage to the enemy before both forces were forced to withdraw after the day's bloody fighting. The following day would be the climax of the conflict, with Dahir this time issuing forth his horsemen at the centre of his army, while the Arabs shot arrows treated with flaming naphtha to panic the elephants. Initially, the battle favoured the Sindhis.
That's so smart using the fire, though.
With Suja the Abyssinian, a renowned champion in Ibn Qasim's army, being killed with an arrow to the neck, and the Caliphal army beginning to retreat before the cavalry onslaught.
This is just such a bad look, though, for the Arabs, because their back, they do have boats, but their back is to the water, which does not give them good leverage here.
Ibn Qasim managed to rally his forces, however, with Muqabisaya's own mounted detachment reinforcing his commander in the center as the battle raged across the banks of the lake.
And I see like Jasiya up there is also having like a skirmish very far away from Dahir. Very interesting, segmented.
Soon, Dahir's lack of authority would be his undoing, with huge numbers of his levied footmen and archers fleeing, leaving mostly the dwindling noble-born cavalry to defend their king, as the rallying Arab army began to push back. As the left wing of his army began to rout, Dahir launched a last valiant charge from atop his elephant, only for a flaming arrow to set the litter he rode in aflame, causing the elephant to panic and rush into the water of the lake. Some of his remaining men attempted to rally about him in the shallows, but now cut off from retreat, the king and those about him were cut down by a volley from the Arab archers along the banks.
That's a horrible way to go.
While Jasiya would escape to continue the war, this victory shattered the Sindhi resistance, with Ibn Qasim executing every prisoner, save the merchants and artisans, and few were willing to back Jasiya in continuing a losing battle. Many towns and cities would swear fealty to Ibn Qasim and the Caliphate in the immediate aftermath, with Jasiya holding out in Brahminabad until its fall to a siege nearly a year later in November 713 officially ended the Chach dynasty and the Kingdom of Sindh. This conquest, together with the simultaneous campaigns in Iberia, would soon bring the Umayyad Caliphate to near its greatest extent. Yet for all its power, the Caliphate was not invincible, and dangers both internal and external continued to loom. The Visigothic...
That is it right there. That is it right there, guys. That is going to be the video. We're going to have a fun video. It looks like we're in Roman times here. Western Roman times, it looks like. So we're going to have a fun time in the next video. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. But wow, what a crazy turn of events this past video, given the, you know, a toppling of a kingdom, basically conquered the rest of North Africa, continued push off in East or Central Asia, as well as Umayyad like dominance across the field of the Caliphate. So what a crazy fun video. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye bye.